هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. Great to be with you. We do hope you're going to keep us company right up until 10:30 this morning. Pardon, it's 10 o'clock. We kick off at 8:30 and we finish off at 10. So we do invite you to keep us company throughout the show. We are coming to you live from our Sunning Hill studios right here in Johannesburg. This is ITV Networks, and we're going to be talking to a whole host of very interesting people on the show today. We'll be talking to husband and wife team from Spice Mecca. They're going to be telling us about the Ramadan for All event that's going to take place, and they'll be joining us in a short while. We'll be looking at stroke awareness with Dr. Feroza Motara, and we kick off by talking about the plight of the Rohingya Muslims. We do know that there's been a carnage in that part of the world, and I'm kind of wondering, because of the Syrian situation, has that fallen under the radar? Should we be concerned? What do we do to keep the Rohingya plight fresh and uppermost in the minds of people so that we can mobilize and help fight the cause for the Rohingya Muslims? Now, someone at the forefront of this campaign is advocate Shabnam Mayet. She's based in Johannesburg, but she takes off time from a very, very busy work schedule to raise the flag for people like the Rohingya Muslims. She's talking to us telephonically this morning, and she's going to be telling us about the latest campaign to fight for the rights and the freedom of the Rohingya Muslims. Advocate Shabnam Mayet, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me on the show this morning.
Lovely to have you here, Shabnam. Where do you find the time for something like the Rohingya cause? I know you've been at it from day one, and you're still fighting tirelessly for this cause. Why is this so close to your heart?
Well, I have to begin by saying that it's definitely a team effort, and the reality is that, you know, especially coming from South Africa, the plight of oppressed people is our plight wherever we find them in the world. And we find that in recent months and years, South Africans have really taken to international struggle. And, you know, like the Syrians, the plight of the Syrians, the plight of the Rohingya, the plight of the Palestinians, and we hope that the public will continue in this way.
When we look at the Rohingya situation, we know that this persecution of these people in Rakhine State in Myanmar started sometime in 2016. What triggered this off? We also know that the Rohingya has been in that part of the world, in Myanmar, in Rakhine State, for centuries. And why now the expulsion, the genocide of these people, or possibly you can even look at it as ethnic cleansing?
It's important for us to note that the struggle is not a new one. The Rohingya have been fighting apartheid and discriminatory policies by the Myanmar government for decades now, and things just came to a head in recent years. And at this stage, you know, there are more than 680,000 Rohingya in camps in Bangladesh. They were forced to flee their homes, suffering the worst atrocities at the hands of the Myanmar military. And we're very fortunate this week because South African-based Protect Rohingya has the opportunity to host international Rohingya activists and documentary filmmakers.
Are they creating the right type of awareness? Do you think it's going to kind of tug at our heartstrings and we'll come out in our droves and start making our voices heard for the plight of the Rohingyas? We know that this was really very much in the mainstream media at the start of the expulsion or the genocide of these people, but it's almost as if Syria or the Syrian people situation has overtaken the Rohingya issue, and we're not hearing or seeing much about the plight of the Rohingya people in mainstream media.
I think you're right to an extent, but all of these are very important issues to have in the media. And it's up to South Africans to actually, ask the media for these stories and why these stories have not been covered, and also to lobby our government. And we're hoping that this awareness drive will assist with that.
Shabnam, because we're not hearing about it as much or not seeing enough or as much footage on mainstream media, is that a suggestion that the plight of the Rohingya people is possibly improving, and that is why it's no longer on the radar?
Absolutely, it's not. And in fact, the monsoon season is approaching. This puts the Rohingya refugees even in a worse situation than they already are. And they've been dispossessed of their land. Repatriation agreements are absolutely a farce. And so the situation is really bad, and we should definitely not turn our eyes away from the situation.
Now, you've spoken about the documentary filmmaker and a human rights activist that are currently in South Africa, and they're going to create more awareness about the plight of the Rohingya Muslims. Let's talk about what is it and what the film is all about, and what the activist is going to be telling us as he goes on this tour in South Africa.
Okay, so we're very fortunate because we're kicking off a week tour in South Africa. We have May Sanwin, who is a Rohingya activist as well as from a Rohingya blogger, and he's been on all major international TV networks and at conferences speaking about the Rohingya. And then we have Shafir Rahman, who's been documenting the plight of the Rohingya for the past 16 months in the camp. His documentary covers the massacres at Pilatori, as well as trafficking and the atrocities that the Rohingya are subject to at the hands of the Myanmar military. So tonight we're going to be at the Europa in Killarney. There's a screening and a coffee night. Tomorrow we're going to be at African Flavor Books. Then they're going to be moving along to Durban on Saturday. Going to be at the Mariam B. Sultan Hall. They're also going to be at the Spice Mecca in Cape Town on Sunday, and at other events on Monday in Cape Town. So we're hoping that the listeners and the viewers will come out and come and support these events.
You've really been at the forefront of this awareness, the awareness of the Rohingya people. Now, apart from the awareness the campaign, are you involved in fundraising as well? And what can we do? We're creating this awareness right here now on ITV. What else is it that we should be doing, not only as Muslims, but as human beings all around the world, to ease the plight of the Rohingya people, and also in the same breath, just how bad is the situation for both the people that have fled Rakhine State? They've now gone into India. I know they're living in camps. I understand that the situation there is absolutely horrendous, even though they've sought refuge in that part of the world. But let's understand on both sides of the border, what does the day-to-day living conditions look like for the Rohingya people?
Or subject to restrictions on movement, not allowed to right to education, to own land, to have proper jobs, skills in country, and education, not allowed religious freedom. So it's something that South Africans can definitely understand. And crossing over into Bangladesh, the situation in the camp is really dire. And in fact, you mentioned India. India is currently the subject matter of a case trying to expel around 40,000 Rohingya. So at this point, we're speaking about a really serious situation. And it's going to get worse if the international movement doesn't pick up and citizens of the world don't lobby like they did for South Africa, then we're looking at a really dire situation, but at a much faster pace.
Approximately how many people? My understanding is a couple of million people have moved or crossed over into Bangladesh. What's the fate like of the people that have still remained on in Rohingya? Are they able to live normal lives, or as normal as possible? Are they able to trade? Are they able to find work? What does the situation look like? Or are the Burmese authorities not going to stop till they've expelled or wiped out the entire Rohingya people from Myanmar?
almost 200,000 people who remain on that side are subject to really terrible practices by the Myanmar military. In fact, they have no access to food. Their villages are generally surrounded. They're suffering all the same atrocities, and they unfortunately hardly have ways out. So those that remaining are suffering as much under these policies, and the Myanmar military has made it their mission to obliterate their.
Shabnam, we're creating all of this awareness. We have the activist, the filmmaker here. You have made your voice together with people that support this cause here in South Africa, and I should imagine internationally, you have really made your voices heard. Where to from here, and how much longer is this scenario, this horrendous scenario, going to be playing out in Rohingya? What is the international community saying about it? Where are the people, the United Nations and other such bodies? Where are their voices? Why are they not putting pressure to ease the plight of the Rohingya people?
There's talk of sanctions, there's talk of cases, but at the end of the day, it's about a practical move. And as far as the international community is concerned, South Africans have been slow to take up this movement, and it's important for us to actually lobby our government and say to our government the same way that we've been lobbying for the removal of the embassy of Israel from South Africa and to remove their diplomats, to do the same with the state of Myanmar.
Okay, let's go for an ad break. We'll be coming back to you in a minute or two to talk some more about the plight of the Rohingya people. Ad break in a minute or welcome back. We're talking to Advocate Shabnam Mayet about the Rohingya plight, and do remember, still to come, we're going to be talking to the husband and wife team from Spice Mecca to talk to us about the Ramadan All event that's going to be taking place in the Western Cape, I presume. And also we're waiting for Professor Feroza Motara. She's actually head of units, emergency departments at Charlotte Macleay Hospital in Johannesburg. But I understand that there's a shutdown at the hospital as we speak. So I'm not quite sure if she's going to be making it today. We hope and pray she does, because there's lots to talk about with her as well. But let's get back to Advocate Shabnam Mayet and the issue of the Rohingya people. Shabnam, when we talk about the plight of the Rohingya people, are we talking solely a Muslim plight? Are there non-Muslim Rohingya people that are affected by the genocide as well?
There are non-Muslims. However, there are a small group, there are Hindus as well, who crossed over on 400 last year. But of course, the majority of the Rohingya people sitting in Bangladesh and refugee camps at this point are Rohingya.
I guess at the end of the day, it's not about religious caste, creed, color, etc. It's about human beings. It's being a humanitarian and helping and trying to ease the plight of people wherever they are. But very quickly in closing, Shabnam, what can you tell us about the filmmaker that is here on this campaign is Muslim, and the activist, the social political activist, is not Muslim. Where and how did you come by these people, and why are they so ready to share the story of the plight of the Rohingyas?
These are both Muslim. However, there are Burmese dissidents in the UK. We wanted them to come initially, but they were unable to make it. But we are very fortunate because they will be able to see first-hand testimonies that were taken by Shafir Rahman of the Rohingya who are crossing into Bangladesh and are now in the Bangladeshi camps. And of course, the other event that's coming up is on the 13th of June. There's Black for Rohingya, where we ask people all around the world to wear black, take a photo, and tweet their message of solidarity and a photo of themselves to us at Protect Rohingya. And that's really picked up steam over the past 6 years as well.
All right, we're going to leave it there. What do you want to say in closing to everyone watching us this morning? The important message about the plight of the Rohingya people.
I'd like to say that we should not give up and that we should keep at it. So we should educate ourselves and those around us. And this is really a genocide. If it continues this way, there will be no Rohingya left in Myanmar. So it's very important for us to really stand up for the Rohingya, to educate ourselves, to join the movement, and to lobby our government to really take a strong stance on the Rohingya, because it's really up to us as individuals.
And you're not saying that lightly. You're not saying that this is truly a genocide, because a senior United Nations official has actually, with a contingent, have visited, where they were given access to Rakhine State, and they have confirmed that this very definitely is a genocide, and the world needs to wake up to this, obviously to this event, and start making voices heard and putting pressure on the Burmese government. But thank you indeed. You're a remarkable young lady, and I admire the passion with which you are fighting this cause. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Thank you indeed for being with us, and inshallah we will hook up soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
That was Advocate Shabnam talking about the plight of the Rohingya people. And please, people, do support the cause. Do go out in your droves. There are a whole host of awareness campaigns, film screenings, fundraisers happening to ease the plight of the Rohingya people. So please make your presence felt and make a difference, inshallah. Time for an ad break, and when we get back, we'll continue this show right here on ITV Networks. And welcome back. We are now going to be talking about an amazing event that's going to be happening in the Western Cape this coming weekend. But I also would like to remind you that after talking with a husband and wife couple, we are going to be talking about stroke awareness with Professor Feroza Motara. But right now, let's talk about the fun stuff and introduce you to this lovely husband and wife couple, Abbas and Sharif and Shamila Abbas. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, Auntie Julie.
Lovely to have you guys here, and I'm wondering, you're putting on this amazing event, and I watched this event last year on ITV Live, by the way, and it really looked wonderful. You guys really pulled out all the stops. Shouldn't you be now in the Western Cape doing all the behind the scenes work, checking that everything's going according to plan?
Absolutely, we should have been there, but absolutely we want to be at this particular interview, Auntie Julie, in Johannesburg, so we're just in and out, but we've got a magnificent team. Our team with our event coordinator, Salama, and Moti, from the Spice Mecca side, they're doing a wonderful job. They're coordinating. Everybody is doing what they have to do. There's a person allocated to do something in every facet of this event. And so we are not worried. It's the quality of the team that you bring to the event that matters. So really, in many ways, we can be obsolete. So that's why we're doing the PR.
But that's what they say, and a successful organization is managed so well from the top that you could be totally absent from the event or the organization and the wheels will still keep on running. So you've obviously chosen the right people. But let's understand who are this dynamic team here with me in the studio. Sharif and Shamila Abbas, you are a husband and wife. Who are you?
Right, Auntie Julie, we run a company called Spice Mecca. We supply major food solutions. And, for this particular event, we really offer a wide range of products in preparation for Ramadan. So, the Buba mix, the Cook System mix, the Faludas and all of that. The dates, we've got a wide range of dates from all over the world. So, in preparation for Ramadan, we do that. But besides that, I'm the brand ambassador of this particular event. So, last year
Last year was the first time.
Last year was the first edition.
Okay.
And we learned many things last year.
Why did you decide to do this event? And I'm wondering, how different is it to any other huge flea market perhaps that you may attend?
Absolutely. I sponsored the Ramadan Expo for 5 years. And then I realized, but we cannot just be captured and be stayed,
Right.
running a souk or a flea market.
Right.
And I believe that we needed to open up this event to all Muslims, no matter what your orientation, as long as you believe in the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you are welcome to come to this event, all Muslims. But we went beyond that. We believe that non-Muslims alike should be invited to see how we do things. And alhamdulillah, so we've changed the name this year to Ramadan for All. So it's really a non-sectarian approach to accommodate everybody, alhamdulillah, and we've done just that. And we see that non-Muslims, on our social media component, on other media platforms, they are rallying. And so we'll change the demographic this year so that non-Muslims can see how we can do things, with the
and
right...
understand us better as Muslims, as a
absolutely.
Muslim ummah, mashallah for that.
And what he also wants to do is invite them. On the Friday, he wants to invite people to do, the non-Muslims, to do 1 or 2 days of fasting with us.
Inshallah.
And then possibly host an iftar, so that you're also showing them what it is we do, how we do it, the peace and tranquility of the deen. And that is also part of the dawah of the program, inshallah.
Now, you're a husband and wife team, and I know that you play a huge role at the event as well. You did last year, and you are going to be doing so this year as well. Tell us what it is.
Oh, you know what? The Spice Mecca Pavilion is a hive of activity. And we run a little kitchen. Well, not a little kitchen, because we do loads. I mean, we do like almost 150 kilos of vermicelli that we cook up.
Wow.
And we serve vermicelli with ice cream. We do traditional foods like babuati with yellow rice, butter chicken, faluda, chili bites. So we have and it's all our staff. It's not
And your
caterers
products,
that come
obviously.
in. It's our products and our staff that works in our office and on our production floor. They actually man the station. So it's very much an interactive, and it's a very much of a social affair for our staff. And that, we can't be more thankful for the wonderful staff that we have at Spice Mecca. And each one has got their responsibility, and they really take ownership of it. So I basically, before then, I used to go and stand in the pots and cook myself, because you know what, it's difficult to let go, so you always want to have your hand in that pot. But I've learned to actually step back. Now I supervise them at the back. But besides that, we run the Cook Easy lifestyle. And that is about showcasing the simplicity of our products. We've got, for example, the butter chicken masala. We've got, like I said, our booba mix. It's all simplistic blends that we will be able to continue with our traditional cooking. And I am really a proponent of getting the youth to continue with our traditional cooking. There's lots of pastas.
It's part of our
our cultural heritage.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying, why do you want to let go? So I have formulated a lot of the different blends, but which will still enable somebody who can't cook to go and cook a traditional meal. Because, I always said when we got married, I couldn't cook. Well, I could cook from a recipe book, something gourmet, but I mean, because at home, my mom spoiled me. I mean, she spoiled all of us. She cooked, and we never cooked before we got married. And she cooked after we got married, and then about a couple of months later, he says, you know what, it's so nice of your mother to cook, but I'd really like you to cook. So I said, are you serious? But when we come from work, it's going to be so late. He says, no, but I want to eat your food. And then I had to start cooking.
So where does Spice Mecca play a role here? Was it, was it established already when you guys got married, or is this a business you established post your marriage?
Right. This was a business, a very, very small business owned by my father-in-law.
Okay.
Yes,
And
he was running a little agency, and then...
But he was also teaching. He was Sheikh Yusuf Buli,
Sheikh Yusuf
Allah
Buli.
yarham, and he was
Well-known,
teaching his
renowned.
children. So
Yes.
while he was teaching, he was also running a little business.
Okay.
And then, of course, he said to me, Sharif, why don't you do this? And I looked at it, and I embraced the idea. I bought over the business, and we've turned it out into what it is today. Alhamdulillah, quite a big business, alhamdulillah.
How long is Spice Mecca running?
We started in 1992.
Alhamdulillah, and may you grow from strength
Inshallah,
to strength.
inshallah.
Let's look at Ramadan for All exhibition. This is the second year running. What are you going to do differently, and what was the learning curve for you from last year? What are the mistakes you're not going to repeat this time around?
No, absolutely. You know, we didn't want it to be, a clothing souk or, a souk for certain other kind of products. We wanted to put there is a souk and there is a market and there's a massive food court. But
and the food, let's face it, those are the elements that draw the people to the event.
Absolutely, we've seen that draws people to the event, but we've also added magnificent other components. So we said, when we inaugurate all our functions with the maqam, with the recitation of the Quran. So what I've done this year, I've brought somebody, inshallah, that will arrive tomorrow from Palestine, from Masjid al-Aqsa, Sheikh Zuhair, that will come and will recite before the Jummah. So we're having the maqam from 9:30 till 12:30. I've also brought the state Qari of Egypt, Sheikh Ahmed Naina, so who will recite. So we inaugurate the proceedings for the entire weekend with the recitation of the Quran.
Our local Qur'an also.
And then as Shamila says, we've got magnificent local Qur'an. Abdurrahman Sadin and Abdulaziz Brown. Yeah.
Let's hold that thought. Let's go for our first ad break. When we come back, we'll talk about everything else that you are offering at the Ramadan for All exhibition this year. And let's really whet the appetites of everyone. And let them come out in their droves, inshallah.
Absolutely.
Time for that next break, and we'll be back in a short while. Don't go away. Sharif and Shamila Abbas from Spice Mecca in the Western Cape are the guests in studio this morning. They're talking about this amazing event, second year in a row running, and it's the Ramadan for All exhibition. Now there's another blurb here on this page which says Castle of Good Hope. When, how does that tie in with the exhibition? What's that telling us?
Well, we felt that this was a place of colonialism. It has a very, very nasty past, suppression, oppression. We believe that we need to take control of our sites and liberate those sites and actually claim those sites.
Right.
So when we did the exhibition last year, it was the first time that the adhan was made in the Castle of Good Hope.
Oh,
so alhamdulillah, so that was magnificent. I also believe it was the first time we did a Jummah last year. So we're going to repeat that Jummah, but what I've done, Auntie Julie, tomorrow, some of the imams and the muazzin and the qaris from Palestine will arrive. We've got 3 gentlemen coming. The first one being the person in charge of the Al-Aqsa compound, Sheikh Majdi Mafarje. He is in charge of the compound. If anybody ever wants to go on iktikaf, he's the man to be talking to. And I'm saying everybody in Cape Town, and if you're in Durban or Joburg or Pretoria or Port Elizabeth, and you can afford it, you should descend on Cape Town to come meet the people from Al-Aqsa. We need to keep the spirit of Al-Aqsa alive. Then the Muazzin, Sheikh Zuhair Al-Sabah. He's the muazzin, but he's also a qari, so he'll be reciting, inshallah, before the Jummah. So I'm saying to everybody, this component of Jummah at the castle, everybody should attend, if you're in Cape Town, and if you can come to this particular event.
There are other personalities involved as well at this event. I mean, you've drawn in from across the globe, and it sounds like a massive undertaking. How much of planning has gone into it? And just mention a few other names that people can hope to meet and greet at the event.
No, absolutely.
And at the dhikr, eh?
Yeah,
the
dhikr absolutely. We inaugurate tomorrow night. The dhikr will take place at the Masjid al-Quds, and all of these personalities from overseas will be present at the dhikr, alhamdulillah. But there's also another person. He's a sheikh, he's a doctor, he's a professor at Quds University, Sheikh Ahmed Jamal Jawad. He's one of the individuals that will also come, one of the imams and sheikhs from Al-Azhar. They're really the brains trust, I would say, of Al-Aqsa. You know, operationally, in terms of Sheikh Majdi, spiritually in terms of our Muazzin, and of course, this professor from Quds University, Abdul Jawad, Dr. Abdul Jawad, alhamdulillah, he's also going to be coming.
Will the general public be able to interact with these personalities? Because that obviously is a draw card and a highlight.
Absolutely. Auntie Julie, as far as I'm concerned, if you meet and you talk to these imams and these personalities, they are humble, as we all should be. And they're going to be accessible to the general public.
We need to wrap up now, but we know that we're living in a Western society and we make lots of dua that our young people are always on the path of Sirat al-Mustaqim, but we also know we have problems in our communities. What is the draw card to get as many young people in a very halal environment like this Ramadan for All event, and what is it that you're going to do to kind of have them to stay there for the entire weekend?
Alhamdulillah, you know, on Friday evening, on Saturday evening, our youth is taken to the nasheeds.
MashaAllah.
So we've got the top nasheed groups in Cape Town that will be present on Friday evening and on Saturday evening, alhamdulillah. There's groups such as Khudamul Islam, Unity, TLC. These are groups.
And they're all amazing. I've heard them.
You've heard them. You know, and that's going to be a major component of a draw card for these individuals, alhamdulillah.
Final words from you?
Well, I would like to invite everybody to come and join us at the cookery demonstrations. I'm going to be doing very simple meals because it must be affordable, economic meals and with ingredients that you have at hand. So we're going to be having cookery demos on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, inshallah. And I'm asking you all and inviting you all to come and join us, inshallah.
I want to add that there are magnificent prizes to be had. The first prize, alhamdulillah, if you book on web tickets to save yourself through the queues. But there's a first prize worth 65,000 Rand, a double ticket to Turkey for 2 people, 10 days, fully paid, all accommodation, the flight tickets. Then there's an additional 2 tickets double tickets to Istanbul. And the first ticket is sponsored by Legend Tours. I must say Legend Tours, they're one of our partners. Then also another partner is Turkish Airlines, will be giving 2 double tickets as well. Then Hikmatul Awam has come on board, alhamdulillah, and their prize would also be a double ticket for 2 people for an Umrah. Besides that, there are dozens of other prizes, snap sales, the Black Hat sale, and you know, this is the place to be over this coming weekend. I'm extending the invitation to all Muslims and non-Muslims to descend on the Castle of Buddha. Let me also just say this event is absolutely for charity. There's no retained funds. There's huge expenses. So
may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your efforts. I'm jealous that I can't be there. It sounds like the place to be, but may you be blessed with good health and long life to continue this initiative for years and years and years to come. It's something that Muslim communities look forward to as a gathering, to meet, greet and have a fun weekend in a very halal environment. Shukran very much for being with us.
Shukran, Auntie Julie, for having us.
My pleasure entirely. And no doubt ITV will be covering it, so you will be viewing some of the live inserts that we will be obviously playing out here on ITV. Still to come, Professor Feroza Motara to talk to us about stroke awareness. And finally, we have Professor Feroza Motara in studio with us. I was wondering whether she'd be able to make it or not, because we'd heard on the news this morning that the hospital is on a shutdown. She'll tell us a little bit about that, just to bring us up to speed. But she's in studio today to talk to us about stroke awareness. And we definitely have to get her back in again, because her CV is like almost the size of a book. So there's so much to uncover with this amazing woman. And let's get right right to the heart of the matter. Assalamu alaikum, welcome.
Salam, and thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here, and like I said, your CV is like a book, so we have to have you back in again. Let's focus on stroke awareness, but before we get there, what's playing out at Charlotte Makeke, however you pronounce it, I can never get it right. You are head of units, emergency departments at the hospital. What's going on?
So there's been a labour dispute that's been playing out. There've been disagreements, with salary increases and that kind of thing. As far as I'm aware, there are negotiations taking place at the moment. We had quite a few incidents last week where, the place was thrashed, garbage was thrown out. But we're still managing to care for our patients, which is our core job. As far as I'm aware, there is some kind of resolution taking place at the moment, so inshallah that will be sorted out fairly soon.
So there's no risk of people possibly not getting emergency care or people dying perhaps that are in hospital, the patients in the wards, etc.?
No, the doctors and the nurses are still on duty. The emergency units are still operational. Patients that come in either with family or with a paramedic are still being treated. Obviously, it makes it a little bit more difficult if there is strike action because the entrances and the exits to the hospital, sometimes get barricaded or blockaded. But generally, we're still caring for the patients as best we can.
One wonders why people in essential and healthcare services would go on strike action, but there's also the other side to the story. They're also humans, they also have needs, and perhaps their needs are not being met, and this is the last resort for them. But I think that's something I'll have to explore in another program. But right now, stroke awareness, coincidentally, I'm sure you're aware of it, is big in the United States. Coincidentally, it is Stroke Awareness Day today in the United States of America. And here I am sitting with Professor Motara talking stroke awareness. Why?
Well, there's a huge problem in our country. We always talk about America and Europe and all those first world countries that have really good data explaining, their incidences and the risk factors, and there's lots of public awareness as far as that's concerned. Unfortunately, we don't. We don't have accurate stats. We don't know exactly how many patients are suffering from stroke. Data we have from 2014 says that we estimate about 132,000 strokes a year in the country. We think it's slightly more.
And you probably see it only when it's too late. Too late to help the patient rehabilitate possibly, or for a better outcome.
Yes, well, that's the problem, and that's part of why we're doing all these awareness campaigns is we want to create the awareness amongst the public, the man in the street, that there is, first of all, something that can be done, provided you get to a hospital early enough, in certain patients, in certain types of stroke, but also that there's something you can do to prevent the stroke in the first place.
So how would I know that I'm a candidate, that I may be, sometime soon, or depending what my risk factors might be, that I might present with a stroke sometime in my life in the near future? Signs, symptoms, and how would I know that I'm possibly a candidate?
Right. So the risk factors for stroke are divided into modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable. The non-modifiable would be your age. Any person over the age of 65, for example, has 2 times the risk of having a stroke as someone below that. Your gender, if you're female, there's a slightly higher incidence.
Why? And we're also looking age 65 plus. Why?
No, so age, simply because of the risk factors that affect your vessels. It's the same risk factors that would cause you to have a heart attack.
Ah, okay.
So, increased diabetes, high blood pressure, increased cholesterol, obesity. Smoking, for example, increases your risk by 6 times of having a stroke. So if you're a smoker, irrespective of your age, you have a 6 times higher risk. And if you compound that with having hypertension, with being obese, with being over 65, that risk just multiplies as you add all those things together. And as I said, other non-modifiable, there's a genetic predisposition. So some people have an inherited abnormality with cholesterol, high levels of cholesterol, and that would affect it. Non-modifiable things, as I said, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension, uncontrolled smoking, alcohol. In our patients, we're seeing a slightly higher incidence in our HIV patients, which they won't see anywhere else in the world because of our incidence of HIV. But we're collecting some data at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to say that there is a definite there are risk factors for HIV. There's an increase in what we call vasculitis, which is an inflammation in the vessels. There's an increased risk for clotting, which is related to HIV. So we are seeing younger and female patients who are as young as 27, 28, who are coming in with acute strokes.
What about children, adolescents, preteens, teenagers? What would the picture look like for that group of people to present with strokes?
The symptoms are
it's
pretty
rare,
much
I should imagine.
Yes, it is rare, and in children it's usually related to some kind of congenital abnormality that they're born with, or some kind of infection that they pick up. But it's rare. It does occur, and I mean you can have a newborn baby, neonate who can have a stroke. But those are usually factors that you can identify fairly quickly if there's an underlying risk factor for it. It's usually something inherited. In terms of symptoms, in a newborn baby it's very difficult because they don't speak, but you'll get an irritable child, you'll get an arm that they're not really using or not moving, one side of the body. So you'll pick up more subtle signs than you would in an adult. In adults, teenagers, adults, pretty much the same symptoms. You'd pick up, we use the acronym FAST, which is facial droop, an arm or a leg weakness, speech that is either slurred or difficult or not, making sort of sense in terms of a sentence, and time, which is the critical factor. Essentially, you lose something like 1.9 million brain cells every minute that you delay treatment for an acute stroke.
Feroza, with due respect to you, and I know that you're obviously at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital in Johannesburg, you head of the unit's emergency departmums. What does it look like? And I'm thinking state hospitals, you are under-resourced, understaffed, etc., and there are always long queues. Allah forbid that, you're presenting with a stroke and you've got to go to a state facility. You're not going to get preference. You're going to be waiting in those long queues. Or is there some sort of differentiation that happens when you come with someone that has a heart attack or a stroke when you come to emergency?
So there's a process called triage, which happens at the entrance to the unit. The staff have been trained. My unit particularly, the nurses, even the porters, have been made aware of symptoms that, and if someone comes in and says we're having a stroke, that patient is what we call a priority 1 patient, and that patient gets taken straight into the emergency unit, into our resus area. The whole idea is that you minimize that time delay, because as I said to you, you're losing brain cells every minute that you're delaying it. And the earlier you can get to do some kind of intervention, if it's indicated, the better the outcome for the patient. You can totally reverse a stroke. Wow. If it's, the patient meets the criteria and it's what we call an ischemic stroke, which is a clot that's blocked an artery that supplies the brain. So yes, there is. We've also done huge amounts of work with our paramedics, where we've done workshops and we've trained and we've drawn up protocols so that they will bypass a smaller hospital that doesn't have a CAT scanner, for example, and bring the patient preferentially to us because they know that something can be done. And the whole Angels initiative, which is a countrywide initiative, is to try and create that awareness, is to create awareness amongst the public, to create stroke-ready units in all our hospitals, public and private, so that patients who get to the door in time can have an intervention.
All right, we're going to talk more about the Angel Initiative, your role in the initiative, and you as head of this unit, emergency departments at the hospital, all of that and more, time permitting, right after the ad break. Professor Feroza Motara is my guest, and we're talking stroke awareness, a very important talk, a very important discussion. Please watch closely because you may be able to pick up a tip or two and inshallah save a life. And we're talking about something really important, stroke awareness, with Professor Feroza Motara, and she's here to educate us, to make us aware in, inshallah, saving a life. It is about saving a life, isn't it? Because if you don't attend to it immediately, the quality of life, that person's life, is going to deteriorate so badly. It's going to be, the person going to be a shadow of him or herself, and the burden's going to be carried by the family.
Absolutely. Currently, at least a third of patients who have a stroke will die within a month.
Sure.
You know, we're looking at something like about 100 patients being disabled a day in this country from a stroke. So
and the impact is huge on family members, isn't it?
If that person is the breadwinner in that family, it's a loss to the person, it's a loss to the family, and you know, you can extrapolate it. It's to the community, to the country, to the economy. You know, and then it's not even taking into account all the factors that would come after the stroke. So the healthcare, the fact that you need a nurse, you know, continuously to help that person, bed sores, infections that they keep getting. So the implications of having someone with a stroke are huge, not just for the person and the family, it's for the community and the health sector as well.
How do I, as a lay person, recognize that my loved one is possibly presenting with a stroke?
There's a few things. A sudden, really severe headache would be something that would alert you, particularly if you're hypertensive, if you've got high blood pressure. Weakness of any limb on one side of the body, changes in vision, difficulty speaking or slurred speech, or unable to voice what you're trying to say, dizziness, loss of consciousness. So there's a whole lot of symptoms. What we're educating the public to recognize is something called FAST, as I said, with facial weakness, which is one of the common symptoms, where you get drooping on one side of the face. Arm weakness, so, you know, if you say to the patient, lift your arm, and he can't, and he keeps, you know, it flops down, that would be a symptom. Speech, as I said, and time. So within that time...
That 3.5 hour period.
4.5 hours is a cut-off time. That is, you know, that you could do something to give a medication to reverse the stroke. And then you have up to 8 hours where we can do something called a thrombectomy, which is actually where they remove the clot that's causing the blockage.
Is this the deep vein thrombosis situation?
Not
necessarily.
Quite. It's a similar concept. Essentially, you put a catheter, the same way you'd put in a stent or do an angiogram in the heart.
Yes.
It's the same process. So you'd put a catheter in, you'd go into the arteries in the brain with some contrast so that you identify the area that's blocked, and then you actually try and manually remove that clot. Problem in South Africa is we have very few people who can do that.
Are these neurologists?
Well, sometimes they're radiologists. It's anyone that can do the intervention. It's called an interventionist radiologist or neurologist. Sorry. So they would go in and do that. The first prize would be to get to a hospital that has a CAT scanner, that has the ability to what we call thrombolize, which is dissolve the clot, and then take it from there.
Is there anything that we should be doing at home if we suspect our loved one is presenting with a stroke, apart from getting them to a facility ASAP? In the interim, is there anything at all we should be doing, or do nothing and just speedily get the person to hospital?
The danger is that you don't know. Okay, so there are things that can mimic a stroke. So, for example, if you're diabetic and your glucose drops,
Right.
If you have a really terrible migraine, if you're epileptic and you have a fit, immediately post that fit, you could have some kind of weakness. So the person, unless they've been educated at home and the family is aware that, okay, my loved one has epilepsy and every time he has a fit, his arm is weak or his leg is weak, that's normal, it's fine, it'll recover. The average person doesn't know that. So it's very difficult to distinguish an actual stroke from the stroke mimics if you're not aware of what they can be. So my advice would be get to a healthcare worker. You can go to your nearest clinic or your nearest hospital, your GP, and provided that they pick up, and that's the critical factor, provided that they pick up that you're actually having a stroke. Because you could have subtle symptoms. I know a patient who just lost his peripheral vision, nothing else. And he went to the hospital in time, and the doctor on duty didn't pick it up. And within 12 hours, the gentleman had a full-blown stroke. So it also depends, it's getting there, making enough noise so that someone knows you're there and that I'm here and I've had symptoms for an hour, and getting someone to do something about it. Because if the hospital or the clinic can't manage it, they should be able to escalate it and, say, go to another facility that's got the ability to treat that.
Now, I know that people that suffer from clots, etc., or high blood pressure, and all of these different diseases, in the past, and I don't know if this still stands true today, is if you were an at-risk patient, you were on a daily dose of aspirin. Does this still stand true? Because I've read contrary to that, and I need to ask you.
Okay, so there's lots of conflicting evidence. There's no 100% evidence that says you shouldn't be taking it. So we're still giving it to our patients, especially our at-risk patients. We're still saying take the aspirin daily, the same way as you would for cardiac problem.
And that does what?
All the aspirin does is it's an anticoagulant. So it limits the amount of clotting that would happen in a vessel. It does not mean that you will never have a stroke, because if you have other risk factors or you have a predisposition to clot anyway, there's still a possibility that you would still have the stroke.
All right, we have 1 minute to wrap up, or less than a minute. What is the important message as far as the Angels Network is concerned and stroke awareness?
So Angels is essentially a national initiative. We formed a steering committee throughout the country with the experts from all the specialities that would be involved. We've come up with protocols that are specific and peculiar to South Africa, and we're rolling that out. We've done extensive training in the years since we established. And the whole idea is to create awareness, not just for the medical people, but from the ground up, so that people are aware that, it's a real issue in South Africa. And with our metabolic diseases and our obesity, especially amongst our youngsters, we're going to see an increase in the number of strokes. So it's to create that awareness and get people to recognize symptoms, and that to appreciate that if it's not a bleed in the brain, but a clot that's caused the stroke, there is something we can do about it.
Thank you indeed for being with us. I look forward to having you back in studio to talk about a whole host of other issues, Professor Feroza Motara.
It's a pleasure.
Indeed, we need to be aware of this. As I've said, in the United States, it is Stroke Awareness Week, and specifically today, they're going all out with all sorts of campaigns, Twitter, hashtag campaigns, etc., to create the awareness of stroke. And we do hope that you're going to keep a beady eye on this as well. Thank you so much for your company today. It's been lots of fun, interesting indeed as well. Till the next time, as always, a big thank you to the hard-working production team. And from me, Julie Alli, it is Khodafez.
يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا 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 هلا